So hopefully you've enjoyed your soup now that you've made it, either your lentil or minestrone or both. So hopefully you've got a little bit of room left over for the next course. And what we're going to do today is make festive leftover veggie shepherd's pie. If you're anything like us, we always seem to end up with way more veg than we need on Christmas Day. And we end up with a mixture of stuff that we've already cooked and stuff that's kind of left over that we haven't used. So what we're going to try and do is create a recipe that lets us use that. You can either have on its own if you fancy just a veggie dish, or you could even have it as a kind of accompaniment if you've got any turkey and pigs in the blanket and stuff like that. You can kind of put that on a plate and have this pie with it. So what we've got here, you can be pretty flexible. Our ingredients, we have some chopped celery and some garlic. Apologies. We have a couple of chopped onions. We have some chopped carrot, chopped fairly fine. We've got some sweet potato that we've got chopped up. We've got some cauliflower that we had left over that we've chopped up, and we've got a bit of courgette that we had left over from making the minestrone soup that we're going to do as well. So the recipe itself is pretty straightforward. We are going to get a pan, we are going to heat it up, and we're going to put some of our oil in the pan. We're also going to need a cup of water, a mug of water, and a stock pot or a stock cube. Quite often when we're doing these recipes, I will tend to kind of encourage you to fry things pretty slowly. We're actually going to fry this a little bit faster than we would normally. We don't want to burn it, obviously, but because we're making pie, or shepherd's pie, what we don't want to do is well, quite a lot of this veg has got quite a lot of water in it, so we actually want to cook it hard enough that we don't end up just with a big sort of watery mess in the bottom of the pan. So we want to kind of fry it off reasonably briskly. So we're going to start with our onions. Wrong bowl. Get the onions in there. And again, you don't want to fry your onions so hard that they look like something you'd get at the shows on a hamburger. You just want them going from white to a little bit clear, and if you can get them going a nice sort of yellowy, golden, browny colour, then that's pretty much picture perfect. And once we've got those going, we're going to add in our celery, stick of celery chopped up really fine, and a couple of cloves of garlic I've got in there as well, just to help with a bit of flavour. Celery is a really good addition to things like this, because particularly if you've got somebody in your family that's having to watch their salt intake, maybe somebody with high blood pressure or heart problems, then celery tends to make is an ingredient that makes things quite sort of taste quite salty. Does the same thing as salt. So you quite often find if you have celery in there, then you don't need quite so much salt in it. And since it's how we're in the west of Scotland, and we do tend to have a bit of a problem down here with our hearts, then that's probably a good thing. We can cut down on the salt. So once we've got that starting to soften up, then we're going to add in our carrots. And again, just move them around the pan, get them all covered in the oil. You can add a bit more oil if you want. Just make sure you properly negate the health benefits of putting the celery in instead of salt. You'll find once this all starts cooking that the water coming out of things like the carrots and the sweet potato in particular probably keep the bottom of the pan moist enough that you probably won't really need to put in much more oil. And again, once we've got that going, then the sweet potato is going to go in there. And then I'm just going to add in the cauliflower as well and the courgette. So we've got a fair old pan full now. If I could live my life all over again, I would probably choose a bigger pan to start this in. We are running out of space here, but we'll coat. And we just want to let that fry off, probably for about, cook off for about maybe 4 or 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. The trick is always to try the carrots in particular, and if they're starting to go a little bit soft, starting to taste a bit more cooked than raw, then we're probably ready for step 2. So while we're all doing that, I am going to fast forward the video to the bit where my veg is ready. So we've let this cook for 5 or 6 minutes and everything's softening up quite nicely. You can let that cook for longer if you need to. The important thing is not to let it burn, obviously, because that'll kind of knacker the taste a bit. If you don't have any mashed potatoes left over from a Christmas dinner, then you're going to want to peel some potatoes and get them on to boil, because we're eventually going to make a mashed top for this pie. So I haven't got any mashed potatoes ready already, so I'm going to make up about that much mash. That's about 5 or 6 potatoes cut up. That should be good for plenty of food for 4 people. So I'm going to go and put that on to boil these potatoes until they're ready to be mashed, and then we'll get started on making the sauce for this. So my potatoes are bubbling away quite nicely. Just getting ready to make the shepherd's pie topping, or the festive pie topping. So what we're going to do now is finish off our sort of veg. Now, before you do this next bit, if you have any other spare veg lying about that's already cooked, now's the time to add it in. I'm thinking if you've got sort of roast veg like carrots or parsnips, or I've got some cooked Brussels sprouts here, everybody's favourite, so they can just go in just now to join the vegetables that we've been cooking. And what we're going to do now to make this is we're going to get just a spoonful of flour, a tablespoon of flour, and we're going to sprinkle that into the pan and then mix that around our ingredients. And basically that's going to help us keep a nice thick stock. So as I say, what we don't want is for the stock to get really watery. So now we're going to take our cup of water and we're just going to add a little, I can't remember what this is, it's about 300 ml or something like that. So I'm going to add about a third of it, so only about 100 millilitres of water. Okay, And I'm going to add, I've got a stock pot. You could use a stock pot or a stock cube, it doesn't really matter too much. And I'm just going to add in about half of it at the moment, because we don't want to make this, we don't want to overdo this. We can always add more, and just make yourself a wee hole so you can see the water that you've just put in, and just sort of work that half a stock pot or stock cube around until it sort of joins the water and you've got sort of gloop, and then give it a wee bit of a stir. And I'm going to add a little bit of water again, a little bit more water, just to give me a little bit more sort of juice. But you absolutely do not want this to start to go watery. You don't want it to look anything like soup. It's just like veg with a bit of sort of thick juice round about it. Just maybe a wee touch more. There we go. Okay, so I reckon that's ready to go now. So I'm just going to go and sort out my potatoes, and then we'll put this pie together. Potatoes, we are going to mash them, and if you've got a little bit of cream left over, or a bit of milk or something, or a bit of butter, margarine, just whatever, you can put that in. You basically just want some nice mash. So that's us got our mash ready, got that here. We've got our sort of veg ready to go, or veg filling. If you've got frozen peas or a can of garden peas, you can add them in as well. Just do them right at the end, or they'll go really kind of mushy. It just gives you a nice little bit of substance. The other thing that you can add in is if you have, if you want, particularly if you want to kind of make this stretch out a little bit further, I reckon this will maybe give 4 people a decent portion. If you want to make it a bit bigger, if you want room for seconds, what you could do is, if you've got any of the lentils left over from making the soup, if you used about 3/4 of the packet of lentils, or 2/3, pop the rest of the lentils in a little bit earlier and add a little bit more of the water and the rest of the stock cube, and you can cook that up. The other thing you can do actually is cook that in a separate pan, the lentils, the water and the stock cube together, and then just add it to the veggie mix at the end. But what we're going to do is get our casserole dish, square, round, doesn't matter. We are going to put our filling in, nice and thick and juicy filling. There we go. You can see on there, it's juicy, but it's not runny. It doesn't have a lot of kind of water fluid swirling about. And then I've got my mash here. I've mashed it up with a little bit of milk, and we had some butter kicking about, so that's in there as well. You can see I didn't have a tatty masher, so we've improvised with a bent fork, which does the job. And then we're just going to put the mash on the top. And just cover that. I might even just use this at the end here. Get that out and just cover it across the top. Nice thick layer, as thick as you want. Tatties can be as thick as you want. If you want to be dead arty, you can use a fork or something to make a pattern, or just get stuck in there. And then we have some cheese left over from one of the kids clubs, one of the kids parties this week, so I am just going to stick some cheese on the top as well, just to make this extra special. Obviously, if you're one or two of the kids I know love cheese and hate vegetables, so this will be a good way to mess with their mind at Christmas. They'll have to decide whether they're going to enjoy the cheese or hate the vegetables underneath. What a way to ruin Christmas. And once we've done that, got our topping on nice and thick, we're going to pop it in the grill for about 10 minutes or so. Just keep an eye on it till that cheese melts and the potatoes start to go nice and brown. So that'll be in there for about 10 minutes. Keep an eye on it. You don't want it to burn at this stage. And we'll leave that for 10 minutes and come back and see if it's ready. That's our grill time up. And our festive leftover shepherd's pie should be ready to eat. So let's get it out. I'm just going to put this on here to protect the work surface. I'm going to get my cloth so that you don't hear me scream in pain. And let's have a look, see how we're doing. Oh, look at it. And that looks pretty fabulous, if I say so myself. Nice and brown and crusty. And if we just get a plate and a spoon, let's have a look at what this is like inside. And we can see inside, nice kind of juicy filling, not too runny, not too watery, just absolutely spot on. There we go. And that can go, you could put more veg with it if you're having a veg high day. You could have it with a bit of leftover chicken. I bet you this would be great with some pigs in the blanket. And a bit of cold turkey. Absolutely spot on. Just whatever you've got makes a great leftover, uses them all up, and you get a nice warm kind of comfort food to have as you particularly fancy. So there we go, leftover veggie pie, festive shepherd's. It's even got shepherds in it. How more Christmassy could you get?